The first time Owen Emerick saw the orc girl bleeding in his barn, he thought she was there to steal his livestock or worse. But then she collapsed face first into the hay and did not move again for 3 full minutes. He stood there with his pitchfork raised, heart hammering against his ribs, watching the rise and fall of her broad shoulders slow to almost nothing. Blood pooled beneath her side, darkening the straw to crimson, and despite everything his father had taught him about orcs being monsters and raiders and killers, Owen found himself setting down the pitchfork and kneeling beside her to check if she was still breathing. She was barely alive. Her green skin had gone pale, almost gray around the edges, and when he carefully rolled her onto her back, he saw the wound. A sword thrust, clean through her side, just below the ribs. The kind of wound that would kill a man in hours without help. Owen had seen enough injuries during his time in the border militia to know death when he looked at it, and this girl was dancing right on that edge. He should have left her there. Should have gone to fetch the town guard, let them deal with an injured orc on his property. That would have been the sensible thing, the safe thing. Instead, he found himself gathering her up in his arms, grunting with the effort because she was solid muscle and easily as tall as him, and carrying her into his farmhouse. He kicked the door shut behind him and laid her out on his kitchen table, sending a bowl of apples clattering to the floor. Owen worked quickly, the way he had learned in the militia. He cut away the leather vest she wore, exposing the wound, and began cleaning it with water from his well. She did not wake, even when he poured whiskey over the injury to clean it properly. Her tusks were small, barely jutting past her upper lip, and her face was younger than he had first thought. Maybe 20 summers, if that. Her black hair was braided tight against her skull in intricate patterns that spoke of careful hands and time taken for beauty, even in a harsh life. He stitched the wound as best he could, his hands steady from practice, though his mind raced with questions. Who had stabbed her? Why had she come here? Was someone following her? When he finished, he wrapped her torso in clean linen bandages and stood back, wiping sweat from his forehead. Dawn was breaking through his windows, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. He had been working on her for hours. She did not wake that day, or the next. Owen moved her to his bed and slept on the floor beside her with his hunting knife under his pillow, just in case. He changed her bandages twice a day, dripped water between her lips when he could, and kept watch. On the 3rd day, when he was checking her wound for signs of infection, her eyes opened. They were the color of amber, bright and alert despite her weakened state, and they fixed on him with an intensity that made him freeze. "You helped me," she said. Her voice was rough from disuse, but her grasp of the common tongue was perfect. "You were dying in my barn," Owen replied, keeping his tone neutral. "Seemed like the thing to do." She stared at him for a long moment, those amber eyes searching his face for something. Then she tried to sit up, gasped in pain, and fell back against the pillows. "I should go. They will find me here. You are not going anywhere with that hole in you, another week at least before you can travel." Owen stood and moved to the small stove where he had been keeping broth warm. "You need to eat, build your strength back. Why are you helping me?" The suspicion in her voice was sharp enough to cut. "Humans do not help orcs. This one does, apparently." He brought her the broth and helped her sit up enough to drink, supporting her shoulders with his arm. She was warm and solid against him, and he tried not to notice the way his heart beat faster at the contact. "I am Owen. Owen Emerick. This is my farm about 10 miles south of Millbridge." She drank the broth slowly, and he could see her weighing whether to trust him with her name. Finally she spoke. "Grata, of the Stonefist clan," she paused, "or I was. I do not think I can claim that name anymore." "Why not?" "Because I committed the greatest betrayal an orc can commit." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "I refuse to raid a human village. When my war band attacked anyway, I fought against them to protect the children who would have been killed. My own brother gave me this wound before I escaped." Owen absorbed that information slowly. He had heard stories of orc raids his whole life, had fought in skirmishes against orc war parties during his militia service. The idea of an orc turning against her own people to save humans was so foreign to everything he knew that it took him a moment to process it. The children. Did they survive? I do not know. I held the raiders back long enough for people to flee to their church, but I was wounded and had to run before I could see the outcome. She looked away from him. "I am a traitor to my blood, clanless. There is no lower shame among my people. You saved children. That is not shameful. To your people, perhaps." She handed him back the empty bowl. "To mine, it is unforgivable, weakness, betrayal. I can never go home." Owen stood and moved to the window, looking out over his fields. The wheat was coming in well this year, golden and heavy-headed in the morning sun. He had built this farm with his own hands after leaving the militia 3 years ago, determined to make a life that did not involve violence and death. And now here he was, harboring a fugitive orc in his home, and he did not regret it even slightly. "Then you will stay here until you are healed. After that, you can decide where to go. You would let me stay, risk the anger of your village if they found out. They would not understand, but yes." He turned back to face her. "What you did took more courage than anything I saw in 5 years of fighting. That counts for something." Grata looked at him with an expression he could not quite read, surprise maybe, or confusion. "You are strange for a human, Owen Emerick. So I have been told." He allowed himself a small smile. "Rest now. I will check on you later." Over the following days, Grata regained her strength slowly. Owen helped her walk to the privy, supported her weight when her legs shook with exhaustion, and pretended not to notice when she gritted her teeth against the pain. She was proud, that much was clear, and accepting help did not come easily to her. But she was also practical enough to know she needed it. They fell into a routine. Owen would wake at dawn to tend his animals and check his crops, then return to make breakfast for both of them. Grata would eat and then insist on helping with small tasks, despite his protests. She would shell peas sitting at his table, or fold clean laundry, or mend tears in his clothes with stitches far neater than his own rough work. In the evenings, they would sit together and talk, carefully at first, then with growing ease. She told him about orc culture, about the clan structure and the emphasis on strength and martial prowess, about how warriors were honored above all others and how mercy was seen as weakness, about the traditional songs and stories passed down through generations, tales of great battles and legendary heroes. Her voice would soften when she spoke of her mother, who had died when Grata was young, and tighten with anger when she mentioned her father, the clan chief, who had disowned her publicly when word of her betrayal spread. Owen told her about his own life in return, about growing up on a farm much like this one, learning to work the land from his father, about joining the militia at 18 when orc raids threatened their region, about the friends he had lost in battle and the faces that still haunted his dreams, about leaving that life behind to build something peaceful, something that created rather than destroyed, about the loneliness of working this farm alone, with no family left, and most of the village keeping their distance because he refused to rejoin the militia when they asked. "They think you are a coward," Grata asked one evening as they sat on his porch watching the sunset. "Some do. Others just think I am strange." Owen whittled a piece of wood absently, shaping it into a spoon. "I fought for 5 years, killed more orcs than I care to count. But after a while I started wondering what the point was. We kill them, they kill us, the cycle just continues. When my father died and left me this land, I decided to try a different way, a way of peace. Something like that, probably foolish. No, Grata's voice was firm, not foolish. Rare, maybe, difficult, but not foolish. She was quiet for a moment, then added, I thought the same thing before the raid, that there had to be another way, that we did not have to be enemies with humans forever. My clan thought I was soft. Corrupted by spending too much time near human settlements, learning your language and your customs. Were you corrupted, I mean? She considered the question seriously. If seeing humans as people rather than prey is corruption, then yes. I could not watch children be slaughtered for the crime of being born the wrong species, even if it cost me everything. Owen stopped whittling and looked at her. In the fading light, her green skin seemed to glow, and her amber eyes were bright with conviction. She was beautiful, he realized with a start, not despite her orcish features but because of them. The strength in her jaw, the proud set of her shoulders, the small tusks that gave her smile a fierce edge. When had he started seeing her this way? What? She asked, catching his stare. Nothing. Just thinking you are probably the bravest person I have ever met. She laughed, a short bark of sound. Brave or stupid, hard to tell the difference sometimes. I am choosing to believe brave. Something shifted in the air between them then, something warm and unspoken. Grata looked away first, her fingers toying with the edge of her borrowed shirt. One of Owen's old militia shirts, far too large for her frame but comfortable while she healed. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything. I do not think I have said that properly yet. You do not need to thank me. Yes, I do. You risked your safety, your livelihood, maybe your life to help me. That is not nothing. She met his eyes again. In my culture, such a debt is sacred. It must be repaid. You do not owe me anything, Grata. That is not how it works. But she smiled when she said it, taking the sting from the words. When I am healed, I will find a way. You will see. 2 weeks after she arrived, Grata was well enough to move around the farm without help. The wound was healing cleanly, leaving what would be an impressive scar but no lasting damage. She insisted on helping with the heavier chores now, and Owen had to admit her strength was useful. She could lift a full water barrel that would have taken him significant effort, and she worked with an efficiency that spoke of long experience with hard labor. They were repairing a section of fence together one morning when Owen heard horses approaching. He straightened immediately, hand going to the hammer at his belt. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. Grata heard them too and tensed, her whole body going still and alert. Inside, Owen said quietly. Now, if there is trouble, I will not hide while you face it alone. Grata, please. If they see you, everything becomes complicated. She hesitated, clearly torn between pride and practicality. Finally, she nodded and moved quickly toward the house, keeping low. Owen watched her disappear inside, then turned to face the road as 3 riders came into view. He recognized them immediately. Marcus, Thomas, and Peter, all former militia members who now served in the town guard. Marcus was the leader, a broad-shouldered man with a thick beard and suspicious eyes. They reined in their horses at the edge of Owen's property. Owen, Marcus called out. Been a while. Marcus, what brings you out this way? Owen kept his voice casual, friendly even though his heart was racing. Looking for someone. An orc girl wounded might have passed through this area about 2 weeks back. She is wanted for attacking her own war band, possibly gone mad. Could be dangerous. Marcus's eyes scanned the farm as he spoke, taking in every detail. You have not seen anything unusual, have you? Owen felt the lie forming on his tongue, smooth and practiced. No, nothing. Been quiet out here. What did she do? Turned traitor to her kind, apparently. Fought against her own clan during a raid on Stonebrook. killed 2 orc warriors before escaping. Thomas spoke this time, leaning forward in his saddle. The orc clans are offering a bounty for information on her whereabouts, dead or alive, they do not care which. Stonebrook. That is the village with the big church, right? Owen kept his expression neutral. I heard there was a raid there, but that everyone survived. The orcs were driven off. That is the strange part, Peter added. By all accounts, they should not have survived. The war band had them surrounded. But something disrupted the attack long enough for people to barricade themselves. Some folks are saying it was divine intervention. Or an orc with a conscience, Owen said carefully. Marcus's eyes narrowed. You sound sympathetic. Just stating facts. If this orc saved lives, maybe she is not the threat you think she is. An orc is an orc, Owen. You of all people should know that after what you saw in the militia. Marcus's voice hardened. If you see or hear anything, you let us know immediately. That is not a request. Harboring an enemy of the realm is a hanging offense. Understood. Owen met his gaze steadily. But like I said, I have not seen anything unusual, just me and my weed out here. The 3 men lingered a moment longer, Marcus clearly wanting to push harder but lacking any real justification. Finally, he nodded curtly and turned his horse. We will be back this way in a few days to check again. You stay vigilant, Owen. These are dangerous times. Owen watched them ride away until they were distant specks on the road, then let out a long breath. When he returned to the house, he found Grata standing by the window, watching through a crack in the shutters. She turned to face him, her expression grim. They are hunting me. Your own people. They are afraid. Fear makes people do stupid things. You should turn me in. The words came out flat, factual. Collect the bounty, I will not blame you. Grata, stop. Why? It would solve all your problems. You could say I forced my way into your home, that you were waiting for the right moment to act. They would believe you. Owen crossed the room in 3 strides and grasped her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. I am not turning you in, not now, not ever. Do you understand me? But they threatened you, said it was a hanging offense to help me. I heard what they said. His grip tightened slightly. I do not care. What you did was right. What they are doing, hunting you like an animal, that is wrong. I will not be part of it. She stared at him, those amber eyes searching his face. You would die for me, a stranger, an orc. You are not a stranger anymore, and yes, if it came to that. He meant it, he realized. Somewhere in the past 2 weeks, Grata had stopped being an obligation or even just a guest. She had become important to him in a way he did not fully understand yet, but could not deny. We will figure this out, together. Something cracked in her expression then, the hard warrior's mask slipping to reveal the frightened young woman beneath. I do not know what to do, Owen. I have nowhere to go. No family, no clan. If your people find me, they will kill me. If my people find me, they will kill me. I am alone. You are not alone. He pulled her into an embrace, feeling her stiffen in surprise before gradually relaxing against him. She was warm and solid, and he could feel her heart beating rapidly against his chest. I am here. We will find a way through this. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the quiet of the farmhouse. Outside, birds sang in the trees and the wind rustled through the wheat fields. Inside, something fundamental shifted between them, the last walls of caution crumbling into something deeper and more dangerous. When they finally separated, Grata wiped at her eyes quickly, embarrassed by the tears that had escaped. I am sorry. Warriors do not cry. You do not have to be a warrior here, you can just be Grata. She let out a shaky laugh. I do not know how to be just Grata. I have been training to fight since I could walk. Then learn. We have time. Owen managed a smile. At least for now, but we should be more careful. Keep you out of sight when anyone comes near. I do not like hiding. I know, but until we figure out a better solution, it is the safest option." Grata nodded reluctantly. "You are right. I do not have to like it, but you are right." She looked around the farmhouse at the simple furniture and worn rugs. "How long can we do this? How long before someone gets suspicious?" "As long as we need to." Owen said it with more confidence than he felt. The truth was, he had no idea how they would manage in the long term. But he would figure it out because the alternative was losing her, and that was becoming increasingly unthinkable. Over the next few weeks, they settled into a new normal. Grata stayed inside or close to the house during the day when neighbors or travelers might pass by on the distant road. At night, they would walk the property together, and Owen would point out the constellations or teach her about crop rotation and soil quality. She proved to be a quick learner, asking intelligent questions and remembering everything he told her. She taught him things too: how to move silently through the woods, where to step and how to control his breathing, how to read tracks and signs in the dirt. Basic hand-to-hand combat techniques that made his militia training look clumsy by comparison. They would spar in the evenings sometimes, carefully because of her healing wound, and he was consistently amazed by her speed and precision. Even weakened and out of practice, she could take him down in seconds if she wanted to. "You are holding back," he complained one evening after she had swept his legs out from under him for the third time. "Of course I am holding back. If I did not, I would hurt you." But she offered him a hand up, grinning. "You are getting better, though. Your defense has improved." High praise from someone who has been fighting since she could walk. "I am serious. A month ago, you would not have blocked that strike." She demonstrated the move again slowly, showing him where his guard had improved. "You have good instincts. You just need more practice." They were standing close now, her hand still on his arm from the demonstration. Owen could see the flecks of gold in her amber eyes, could smell the clean scent of the soap she had used after washing up. His heart was beating faster, and not from the exertion of sparring. "Grata," he said quietly. "Yes, I need to tell you something." She waited, her expression open and curious. He took a breath, trying to find the right words. "These past weeks, having you here, it has meant more to me than I know how to express. You are not just a guest anymore or someone I am helping. You are." He trailed off, struggling. "I care about you, more than I should, probably." Her eyes widened slightly. "Owen, I know this is complicated. I know we are from different worlds and there are 100 reasons why this is a terrible idea, but I cannot keep pretending I do not feel what I feel." He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "I think I am falling in love with you." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Grata stared at their joined hands, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "In my culture, love is not something we speak of openly. Bonds are formed through actions, through loyalty proven over time, but I understand what you are saying." She looked up at him. "And I would be lying if I said I did not feel something similar. You have shown me kindness I never expected from a human. You have risked everything for me. How could I not care for you in return? But," he could hear the hesitation in her voice, "but what future could we have? I am hunted by both our peoples. Any relationship between us would be forbidden, scorned. You would lose your home, your place in your community. I cannot ask that of you. You are not asking. I am offering." Owen squeezed her hand. "I know it would not be easy. I know we would face challenges that most couples never have to think about. But I also know that I have never felt this way about anyone before, and I do not want to lose you because we are too afraid to try. You do not understand what you would be giving up. Then explain it to me." Grata pulled her hand free and paced away, her movements agitated. "If we bonded, if we committed to each other the way you are suggesting, you would be marked as a traitor to your people. The same way I am marked as a traitor to mine. Your neighbors would shun you. Your friends would turn their backs. You might even be driven from your home. Maybe, or maybe they would learn to accept it over time. And if they did not, if we had to run to live as fugitives, could you give up everything you have built here, everything you have worked for, just to be with me? Owen considered that seriously. This farm was his dream, his refuge after years of violence. These fields represented peace and stability, a life he had fought hard to create. But as he looked at Grata, at the fierce pride in her stance and the vulnerability in her eyes, he knew his answer. Yes, he said simply. I could, I would. She turned to face him fully. You would give up everything for someone you have known for only a month. When you put it that way, it sounds insane. He managed a smile. But yes, because in this month you have become the most important person in my life, because I wake up every morning grateful that you are here, because the thought of you leaving makes my chest hurt in a way I cannot describe. Is that love? I think it is, and I think it is worth fighting for. Grata was silent for a long moment, emotions warring on her face. Then she crossed the distance between them in 2 strides and kissed him. It was fierce and desperate, full of all the things neither of them knew how to say. Owen wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, and for a perfect moment the rest of the world fell away when they broke apart, both breathing hard. Grata rested her forehead against his. I do not know how to do this, she admitted. I was not raised for gentleness or romance. I know war and battle and duty, but not this. Neither was I, really. We will figure it out together. Together, she repeated, testing the word. Then more firmly, yes, together. They held each other as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Owen knew they still had massive obstacles to overcome, still had no clear solution to their situation. But for now, in this moment, he felt more at peace than he had in years. The trouble came 3 days later. Owen was in the barn tending to his horse when he heard voices from the house. Multiple voices, loud and aggressive. His blood turned to ice. He grabbed a pitchfork and ran toward the farmhouse, his mind racing through terrible possibilities. He burst through the door to find Grata backed against the far wall, facing 4 men he did not recognize. They were armed with swords and wore the leather armor of mercenaries or bounty hunters. One of them held a piece of paper that Owen recognized as a wanted poster. Well, well, the leader said, a scarred man with cruel eyes. Looks like we found our prize, the orc girl who turned traitor. Our information was correct. His gaze shifted to Owen. And here is the fool harboring her. That makes you complicit, farmer. Get out of my house. Owen kept his voice level despite the fear coursing through him. You have no authority here. We have all the authority we need. The orc clans put a bounty on her head. 500 gold pieces for her return, dead or alive. As for you, the regional magistrate will be very interested to learn about your treasonous activities. She saved a village full of children, Owen shot back. That is not a crime. That is heroism. She betrayed her own kind. Whatever her reasons, she is a fugitive. The leader drew his sword, the metal singing as it cleared the scabbard. Now step aside, or we will have to go through you. Owen gripped the pitchfork tighter. That is not happening. The leader laughed. 4 armed men against a farmer with a gardening tool. I like those odds. Wait, Grata said, her voice cutting through the tension. I will go with you, just leave him alone. He did not know what I was. I forced my way into his home and threatened him to stay quiet. He is innocent. Grata, no, Owen started, but she cut him off with a sharp look. This is my choice, Owen. Let me do this. How touching, the scarred leader said. But I am afraid we cannot take your word for his innocence. We will be collecting you both. The magistrate can sort out the details." That was when Grata moved. One moment she was pressed against the wall, apparently submissive. The next, she had closed the distance to the nearest mercenary and snapped his sword arm with a sickening crack. Before the others could react, she had his sword and was swinging it in a vicious arc that sent the leader stumbling backward. "Owen, run!" she shouted, engaging two of the mercenaries at once. But Owen did not run. He had spent 5 years in the militia, and while he was not Grata's equal in combat, he was not helpless either. He lunged forward with the pitchfork, driving it into the shoulder of the fourth mercenary. The man screamed and fell back, clutching at the wound. The fight was brief and brutal. Grata moved like a dancer, all controlled violence and precise strikes. She disarmed one mercenary and knocked him unconscious with the pommel of her stolen sword. The leader proved more challenging, his skills suggesting real training, but even he could not match her ferocity. She drove him back step by step until she had him cornered by the door. "Leave," she commanded, her blade at his throat. "Tell whoever hired you that the bounty is not worth the cost. Tell them that Grata Stonefist has found protection, and anyone who comes for her will face the same fate as your men. Do you understand?" The leader nodded frantically, his earlier bravado completely gone. Grata lowered the sword and stepped back, and he scrambled out the door without another word. The conscious mercenary followed, dragging his wounded companion, leaving only the unconscious one behind. When they were gone, Grata lowered the sword and turned to Owen. "Are you hurt?" "No, I am fine." "You?" He could see blood on her shirt but could not tell if it was hers or someone else's. "Minor cuts only. Nothing serious." She set the sword down carefully and leaned against the wall, suddenly looking exhausted. "This is it, Owen. This is the moment where everything changes. They will be back and they will bring more men. Your quiet life is over." Owen looked around his farmhouse at the overturned furniture and blood on the floor. She was right. There was no going back to the way things had been. The secret was out, and soon everyone would know that he had been harboring Grata. "Then we leave," he said. "What? We leave? Tonight? We take what we can carry and we go." He moved to her, taking her hands in his. "You were right before. They will not stop coming. Not the bounty hunters, not the town guard, not anyone who thinks they can make easy money or curry favor by turning us in. So we go somewhere they cannot find us. Owen, you love this farm. You built it with your own hands. And I would burn it to the ground myself before I let them take you." He meant every word. "This place is just land and wood and crops. You are irreplaceable." Grata's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "Where would we even go?" "North. Into the frontier territories where the rule of law is looser and people mind their own business more. We could find a remote place, start fresh. It would be hard, but we would be together. You would truly give up everything for me, I told you before." "Yes, without hesitation." He pulled her into his arms. "I love you, Grata, and love means choosing each other even when it is difficult, especially when it is difficult." She buried her face in his shoulder and he felt her shaking with silent sobs. "I love you too," she whispered. "I did not want to say it before because I was afraid of what it would mean, what it would cost. But I do. I love you, Owen Emerick." They held each other for a long moment, both knowing that the easy part was over and the real challenges were just beginning. Then they separated and began to move with purpose. Owen packed quickly and efficiently. Clothes, tools, weapons, dried food, and seeds. Everything he needed to start over somewhere new. He filled 2 large packs and secured them tightly. Grata checked the unconscious mercenary and determined he would wake in a few hours with nothing worse than a headache, then tied him securely and left him in the barn where he would eventually be found. By the time darkness fell, they were ready. Owen took one last look around his farmhouse, memorizing the space he had called home for 3 years. Then he shouldered his pack, took Grata's hand, and walked out the door without looking back. They traveled north through the night, moving quickly but carefully. Grata's tracking skills and night vision proved invaluable, guiding them through the wilderness without using any light that might give away their position. Owen followed her lead, trusting her completely. They stopped to rest only when exhaustion forced them to, huddling together under a thick oak tree as the first light of dawn painted the sky. Owen made a small fire, just enough to warm some water for tea from the herbs he had packed. They sat close together, shoulders touching, neither speaking much. There was too much to say and somehow nothing that needed to be said at the same time. "You regret it?" Grata asked finally, staring into the small fire. "Leaving everything behind?" "Ask me again in a year when we are settled somewhere safe and comfortable. But right now, no," he squeezed her hand. "No regrets. Even if we can never go back, even if you are marked as a traitor and an outcast, even then." He turned to face her fully. "Grata, listen to me. You are not some burden I am carrying out of obligation. You are the person I choose. Every day, every moment I choose you. Do you understand?" She nodded slowly. "I am not used to being chosen. In my culture, bonds are formed through strength or political necessity. The idea of someone simply choosing to be with me because they want to, it is foreign. Then let me teach you about it, the same way you are teaching me about your culture." A small smile crossed her face. "A trade of knowledge, that seems fair." They rested for a few hours, taking turns keeping watch, then continued north. For 3 days they traveled through increasingly wild terrain, staying well off the main roads. Grata hunted small game for food, and Owen found edible plants and herbs. They fell into a rhythm, each playing to their strengths, working together seamlessly. On the 4th day they crested a hill and saw it. A valley spread before them, green and lush, with a small river running through it. Dense forest covered the surrounding hills, and Owen could not see any signs of human habitation. It was remote, isolated, and absolutely perfect. "There," he said, pointing. "That is where we make our new home." Grata studied the valley with a tactical eye, noting the natural defenses and resources. Good water source, plenty of game. The forest would provide timber and concealment. It is far from any major roads or settlements. She nodded slowly. Yes, this could work. They descended into the valley together, and Owen felt a sense of rightness settle over him. This was not the life he had planned, but it was the life he had chosen, and that made all the difference. Building their new home took time and effort. They started with a simple shelter, 4 posts and a roof of woven branches and grass to keep out the rain. It was crude but functional, and they gradually improved it over the following weeks. Owen used his farming knowledge to clear a small plot for a vegetable garden, while Grata ranged through the forest, setting snares and learning the patterns of the local wildlife. They worked side by side every day, from dawn until dusk. The labor was hard and constant, but there was satisfaction in it too. Every improvement they made to their shelter, every row planted in the garden, every smoked fish added to their stores was a tangible sign of their progress. They were building something together, something that belonged to both of them equally. At night, they would collapse into their bedrolls exhausted, but Owen found he slept better than he had in years. There was something deeply peaceful about being this far from civilization, away from judgment and expectations. Here, they could just be Owen and Grata, 2 people making a life together. Nothing more, nothing less. One evening about a month after they arrived in the valley, Grata returned from hunting to find Owen had built a proper table and 2 chairs. The furniture was rough, made from logs he had split and shaped, but it was sturdy and level. He had even carved simple designs into the edges. "For eating civilized meals," he explained, grinning at her surprise. Instead of squatting on the ground like animals, she laughed and ran her hand over the smooth wood. "It is beautiful. You have a talent for this. My father taught me carpentry. Said a man should know how to work with wood and stone as well as soil." He pulled out one of the chairs for her in an exaggerated gesture of courtesy. "My lady, dinner awaits." Grata sat with a theatrical air of dignity, playing along. "Why, thank you, good sir." "What is on the menu for this fine evening?" "Roasted rabbit, wild onions, and the last of the bread I made 2 days ago. Not exactly a feast, but it will keep us fed." They ate together as the sun set, and Owen marveled at how natural this felt. How completely right it seemed to share a meal with her at the end of a long day. When had she become so essential to his happiness? He could barely remember what his life had been like before she stumbled bleeding into his barn. After dinner, Grata cleared her throat in a way that suggested nervousness. Owen looked up, curious. "There is something I want to show you," she said. "Something important in my culture, a tradition that I think applies to us now." "All right." He set down his plate, giving her his full attention. She stood and moved to stand before him, her expression serious. In Orc culture, when one person owes another a life debt, when someone has saved you or protected you at great cost to themselves, there is a gesture we make. A symbol of gratitude and loyalty. "You do not owe me anything, Grata, I have told you that. I know what you have told me, but this is not about obligation, this is about choice." She took a deep breath, and Owen saw vulnerability in her eyes. "Among my people, this gesture is sacred. It is not made lightly. It signifies complete trust, absolute submission to another's protection. It means I belong to you completely in all ways." Owen's heart began to beat faster. "What is the gesture?" Instead of answering with words, Grata reached up and carefully removed the leather cord she always wore around her neck. Then, slowly and deliberately, she tilted her head to the side, exposing her throat fully. The skin there was slightly paler than the rest of her, vulnerable and unprotected. She closed her eyes and stood perfectly still. The meaning hit Owen like a physical blow. In her warrior culture, the throat was the most vital target. To bear it willingly was to place absolute trust in another person, to expose deliberate vulnerability, and she was offering that to him. "Grata," he breathed. "In my language we say Thraka Nalam Kadish," she said softly, her eyes still closed. "It means I give you my life to hold. It is the highest form of trust an Orc can show. I offer it to you freely, Owen Emerick, because you have earned it 1,000 times over." Owen stood slowly and moved to stand before her. He reached out with one hand and gently touched her exposed throat, feeling her pulse beating rapidly beneath his fingers. She did not flinch or pull away, though he could sense the effort it took for her to remain still. "I accept your trust," he said formally, feeling the weight of the moment. "And I offer mine in return, my life for yours always." He leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to her throat, over the pulse point where her life beat strong and steady. He felt her shiver at the contact, heard the small sound she made. When he pulled back, her eyes were open and shining with emotion. "In my culture," Owen said, "we do not have such a specific tradition, but we do have marriage, a formal bond recognized by community and law. A commitment to stand together through all circumstances." He took both her hands in his. "I cannot offer you that here with no witnesses and no authority to bless it, but I can offer you my vow. I choose you, Grata of the Stonefist clan. I choose you as my partner, my love, my family. For as long as we both shall live." Tears rolled down her cheeks, catching the firelight. "I choose you too, Owen Emerick, In the sight of the earth and sky, in the presence of all that is sacred, I bind myself to you. My strength is your strength. My life is your life, now and always." They sealed the promise with a kiss, deep and full of passion. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer just two people hiding in the wilderness. They were bonded, committed, joined in a way that transcended the prejudices and hatred of their respective peoples. That night, they made love for the first time. It was tender and fierce by turns, full of discovery and wonder. Owen learned the landscape of her body, the places that made her gasp or moan. She learned his rhythms and responses, the ways to drive him wild. They fit together perfectly despite, or perhaps because of their differences, finding joy in each other that neither had expected. Afterward, they lay tangled together in their bedrolls, skin to skin in the darkness. Grata traced patterns on Owen's chest with her fingers, and he played with her long black hair, undoing the braids and running his hands through the silky strands. "I never thought I would have this," she said quietly. "Love, partnership, a home built on choice rather than duty. My whole life I was told that warriors do not need such things. That softness was weakness." "You feel weak now," she considered the question seriously. "No, I feel stronger. Like I have something worth fighting for beyond just survival or honor." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "You have changed me, Owen, made me believe that there can be more to life than endless conflict. You changed me too. Made me believe that choosing love over fear is possible, even when the whole world says otherwise." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, safe in their remote valley where no one could judge or threaten them. The summer passed in a blur of hard work and quiet happiness. Their shelter became a proper cabin, with walls and a door and a chimney. The garden flourished under Owen's care, providing vegetables to supplement the meat Grata hunted. They built a smokehouse for preserving food, a small stable for the horses they eventually acquired by trading furs at a distant outpost, and a dozen other improvements that made their life more comfortable. They also built something less tangible but equally important, a shared life, with routines and private jokes and comfortable silences. Owen taught Grata to read and write the common tongue, and she taught him phrases in her language. They would quiz each other while working, making a game of the learning. She proved to have a gift for languages, her warrior's discipline translating well to academic pursuits. Owen also began teaching her about farming, sharing everything his father had taught him about crop rotation and soil health. Grata absorbed it all with the same focus she brought to combat training, asking sharp questions and making connections he had not expected. She had a tactical mind, he realized, and she applied it to everything she did. They sparred together most evenings, both for exercise and because it was something they both enjoyed. Owen's skills improved dramatically under her instruction, and sometimes he could even land a hit now, though she still won most of their matches. But he did not mind losing to her. There was something deeply satisfying about watching her move, all controlled power and lethal grace. One evening in late summer, after a particularly intense sparring session, they sat together catching their breath. Grata had a thoughtful expression on her face. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked. "The future. What comes next for us?" "What do you mean?" She gestured at the cabin and the cleared land around it. "We have built a good home here, better than I could have hoped for, but it is isolated. We are alone. Is that enough for you, for us?" Owen considered that carefully. "Are you asking if I am lonely? I am asking if you miss your people. Your community, the connections you had before." He was quiet for a moment, thinking about his old life. His friends in Millbridge, the neighbors who would stop by to share news and gossip, the sense of belonging to something larger than himself. Sometimes, he admitted. Not often, but sometimes. Humans are social creatures. We are not built for complete isolation. Orcs too, Grata said. We live in clans for a reason. Strength in numbers, yes, but also companionship, shared purpose. She looked at him seriously. What if we could build that here? Not just a home for the two of us, but something larger. What are you suggesting? There are others like us. Humans who do not fit in their communities. Orcs who question the endless cycle of violence. What if this valley became a sanctuary for people like that? A place where anyone could come, regardless of species, and find acceptance. Owen felt his heart begin to beat faster as he understood what she was proposing. You want to build a community here, a mixed community of humans and orcs, and anyone else who needs refuge. Yes. Her eyes were bright with excitement now. Think about it, Owen. We have proven that it is possible for our peoples to live together peacefully. What if we showed others that it could be done? What if we offered an alternative to the hatred and violence? It would be dangerous. People on both sides would see us as a threat. More dangerous than what we are doing now. We are already fugitives, already outcasts. At least this way we could make our exile mean something. Owen stood and paced to the edge of their clearing, looking out over the valley they had claimed. The idea was audacious and terrifying and absolutely perfect, a place where people could be judged by their character rather than their species, where peace was not just an ideal but a lived reality. How would we even start? He asked, carefully. We would need to put out word through the right channels, find others who are sympathetic to the idea, screen people thoroughly before allowing them in. Grata came to stand beside him. It would take time, maybe years, but I think we could do it, together. Owen reached out and took her hand, lacing their fingers together. A sanctuary in the wilderness, a community built on acceptance rather than prejudice. He smiled slowly. My father used to say that the best way to defeat darkness is to light a candle. I think you just proposed we build a bonfire. She laughed, the sound bright and joyful. So we do it, we try. He pulled her close and kissed her forehead. But we do it smart. Start small, build carefully, make sure we can protect what we create. Agreed. They spent the rest of the evening planning, their words tumbling over each other in excitement. They would need more cabins, a communal space for gatherings, better defenses. They would need to establish trading relationships with distant settlements, create rules for how the community would function, figure out how to handle disputes and make decisions. It was overwhelming and exhilarating in equal measure. But for the first time since leaving his farm, Owen felt like he had a purpose beyond just survival. They were going to build something new, something that had never existed before. A place where the old hatreds could not reach. The first person to join their fledgling community arrived in early autumn. Owen was checking the fish traps in the river when he heard Grata's distinctive whistle, the one that meant possible trouble. He dropped what he was doing and ran back toward the cabin, hand on the knife at his belt. He found Grata standing at the edge of their clearing, facing a human man who looked to be in his 40s. The stranger had his hands raised in a gesture of peace, and his clothes marked him as a traveler who had been on the road for some time. Owen, Grata called out when she saw him. This man says he heard rumors about a mixed community in the northern wilderness. He came looking for us specifically. Owen studied the stranger carefully. He looked tired and worn, with the kind of deep exhaustion that spoke of more than just physical weariness. What is your name? Owen asked. Oscar Ellis. I was a merchant in Rivertown until 6 months ago. The man's voice was hoarse. I helped some orc refugees escape when the town guard was rounding them up for execution. When I was discovered, I had to flee, been on the run ever since. Why help them? Owen kept his tone neutral, not revealing anything yet. Because it was the right thing to do. They were families, not warriors, old people and children. I could not stand by and watch them be killed for the crime of existing. Oscar looked between Owen and Grata. I heard there was a place in these mountains where humans and orcs lived together, where someone like me might find sanctuary. Is this that place? Owen exchanged a glance with Grata. This was the moment where they decided if their dream was really going to become reality. She nodded slightly, trusting his judgment. It is, Owen said. Or it is trying to be. We are still building. But if you are willing to work hard and live peacefully alongside anyone regardless of species, you are welcome here. Relief washed over Oscar's face so completely that he nearly collapsed. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. I think I do. Owen stepped forward and offered his hand. Welcome to what we are calling Sanctuary Valley. Let me show you around. Oscar proved to be an invaluable addition. His experience as a merchant meant he understood logistics and trade networks. He helped them establish better supply lines and suggested improvements to their planning. He also threw himself into the physical work with enthusiasm, helping to build a second cabin and clear more land for farming. More importantly, he brought hope. Proof that their idea could work, that others would come. Within a month, 2 more people arrived. A young human woman named Allison Ross, who had been cast out for refusing to marry the man her father chose, and an older orc male named Durka, who had been wounded in battle and left behind by his clan as too weak to be worth saving. The 4 newcomers were wary of each other at first, centuries of conditioning not easily overcome. But Owen and Grata worked to build bridges, creating situations where people had to cooperate and slowly building trust. They instituted communal meals where everyone contributed something, and they established a rule that everyone took turns with all the different tasks, regardless of traditional gender or species roles. Slowly, carefully, it began to work. Allison learned to hunt from Durka, and in return, she taught him about herbal medicine. Oscar discovered he had a talent for carpentry and worked alongside Owen to build more structures. Grata organized defense training for everyone, insisting that in this remote location, everyone needed to be able to protect themselves. By the time winter arrived, they had 6 cabins, a communal hall, and 8 residents. It was still small, barely a hamlet, but it was real. They gathered in the hall for the winter solstice, and Owen looked around at the mixed group sharing food and warmth and felt a surge of pride and hope. A year ago, I was alone on a farm, thinking I had found peace, he said when Oscar asked him to speak. Then Grata stumbled into my barn and everything changed. She showed me that real peace is not about hiding from conflict. It is about having the courage to build something better. You saved my life, Grata added, standing beside him. But more than that, you gave me hope that I could be more than what my culture dictated, that I could choose my own path. She looked around at the gathered people. All of us here have been rejected by our birth communities. All of us have been told we are traitors or fools for believing that peace between our peoples is possible. But look at what we have built together. Look at what we can accomplish when we set aside old hatreds. To Sanctuary Valley, Oscar raised his cup. And to the future we are building one day at a time. To Sanctuary Valley, everyone echoed, and the hall rang with voices, human and orc blending together. That night, after everyone had retired to their cabins, Owen and Grata stood outside looking up at the stars. Snow was falling softly, muffling sound and painting everything in shades of white and gray. We did it, Owen said softly. We actually built something that works. We started something, Grata corrected. There is still a long way to go. More people will come and with them more challenges. We will have to figure out governance and justice and 100 other things we have not thought of yet. Are you worried? A little. But mostly I am excited. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. A year ago, I thought my life was over. I had betrayed my clan and had no future. Now I have you, and I have this place, and I have purpose. I never imagined I could be this happy. Neither did I. Owen kissed the top of her head. Thank you for stumbling into my barn. Best thing that ever happened to me, she laughed. I will try to get stabbed and nearly die in convenient locations more often. Please do not. But he smiled as he said it. They stood there for a while longer, warm despite the cold, watching snow fall on their valley. In the distance, smoke rose from the chimneys of the other cabins, signs of life and warmth. This was home now, not just for them, but for everyone who had found their way here. The second winter was harder than the first. More people meant more mouths to feed, more firewood needed, more of everything. They had stored what they could, but supplies ran lower than Owen liked. He and Grata made the decision to send Oscar and Durka on a trading expedition to a distant outpost, trading furs and smoked meat for grain and other necessities. They returned with supplies, and with news that made Owen's blood run cold. The regional magistrate had officially declared Sanctuary Valley a rogue settlement and was offering bounties for information on its location. Moreover, several of the nearby towns had banded together to hire a mercenary company to find and destroy the settlement. They see us as a threat, Oscar explained grimly. A place where humans and orcs live together challenges everything their society is built on. They cannot allow us to succeed because then people might start questioning why the war has to continue. Owen called a meeting of all the residents in the communal hall. There were 15 of them now, a mix of humans and orcs, young and old. He explained the situation clearly, not softening the danger. I will not lie to you. This is serious. If they find us, they will come with enough force to overwhelm our defenses. We are not an army, just people trying to live in peace. He paused, letting that sink in. Anyone who wants to leave to find safety elsewhere, I understand. No one will think less of you. This is not your fight. No one moved. This is our home, Allison said firmly. Where else would we go? Back to the places that rejected us. I would rather fight for something I believe in than run forever. Agreed, Durka rumbled. The old orc warrior had become something of a grandfather figure to the community, despite his gruff exterior. I have run from enough fights. I will not run from this one. One by one, every person in the hall voiced their commitment to stay and defend Sanctuary Valley. Owen felt emotion welling up in his chest. These people, so different in background and species, had formed something precious. A community bound not by blood or tradition, but by choice and shared values. Then we prepare, Grata said, her voice carrying the authority of her warrior training. We improve our defenses, set up watch rotations, train harder, make this valley so difficult to assault that they will think twice before attacking. Over the following months, they transformed Sanctuary Valley into a fortress. They built a palisade wall around the core settlement, with watchtowers at key points. They cleared sight lines to prevent ambushes and dug pit traps along the most likely approaches. Grata trained everyone in combat, not to make them warriors, but to give them a fighting chance if it came to battle. They also sent messages through the network of sympathetic travelers and merchants who knew about their community. Messages explaining what they were building and why it mattered. Messages asking for support, or at least neutrality, from anyone who might listen. Some responses were hostile, but others were surprisingly supportive. A few settlements in the far frontier sent supplies with notes of encouragement. A retired general wrote to say that he admired their courage even if he thought they were doomed to fail. Even a few orc clans sent cautious messages, not endorsing Sanctuary Valley but not condemning it either. The support was not enough to guarantee safety, but it was something. Proof that they were not entirely alone in their convictions. The attack came in early spring. Grata spotted the mercenary company from the northern watchtower and rang the warning bell. 50 armed men, well equipped and organized. They approached the valley from 2 directions, clearly planning a coordinated assault. Owen's heart hammered as he took his position on the wall, a bow in his hands and a quiver of arrows at his side. This was it. Everything they had built would stand or fall in the next few hours. "Hold your positions," Grata called out, moving along the wall to check on everyone. "Do not waste arrows. Wait for my signal." The mercenaries reached the outer perimeter and began probing the defenses. Several fell into the pit traps, their screams echoing across the valley. Others triggered snares that sent logs swinging into their ranks. The attacks were designed not to kill but to disrupt and demoralize, and they worked. The mercenaries pulled back to regroup, clearly surprised by the level of preparation. Their leader, a tall man with a commander's bearing, rode forward under a white flag. Owen and Grata met him at the gate, though they did not open it. "You are the leaders of this rabble?" the commander asked, disdain dripping from his voice. "We are," Owen replied calmly, "and this rabble has names, families, and the right to live in peace. You are harboring fugitives and traitors. Surrender now and you will be granted a trial. Resist and we will take you by force." "We are not fugitives. We are people who have chosen to live differently. That is not a crime. In the eyes of the law it is. You have 1 hour to decide. Surrender or face the consequences." The commander wheeled his horse around and rode back to his lines. Owen looked at Grata. "Can we hold them off for a while? Maybe long enough for them to decide we are not worth the cost." Her jaw was set, but he could see the worry in her eyes. "Or maybe not. This is going to be bad, Owen. I know." He took her hand, squeezing gently. "But whatever happens, I do not regret any of it. Building this place with you has been the greatest honor of my life. Do not talk like we are defeated already. We are still standing, and so is our home." She was right. Owen straightened his shoulders and turned to address the defenders on the wall. "They think we will break easily. They think a mixed group of cast-offs and refugees cannot stand against trained soldiers. Let us prove them wrong." A cheer went up from the wall, fierce and defiant. When the mercenaries attacked again an hour later, they met not frightened victims, but determined defenders fighting for their home. The battle was chaotic and brutal. Arrows flew from both sides. The mercenaries tried to scale the walls in several places, but the defenders fought them back. Grata was everywhere at once, directing the defense, filling gaps in the line, and personally accounting for half a dozen mercenaries who made it over the wall. Owen fought alongside her, his militia training coming back despite the years of peace. He was not the warrior she was, but he held his position and protected his people. A mercenary came at him with a sword, and Owen blocked with his shield, then drove his blade into the man's side. The mercenary fell, and Owen felt a surge of grim satisfaction mixed with horror at what he had been forced to do. The fighting raged for hours. The mercenaries kept coming, wave after wave, and the defenders grew tired. Owen saw Allison take an arrow in the shoulder and drag herself to cover. Saw Durka break a mercenary's sword with his bare hands before driving the man off the wall. Saw Oscar fighting side by side with a young orc woman named Kara, the two of them covering each other's blind spots perfectly. Just when Owen thought they could not hold much longer, a horn sounded from the forest. Not a mercenary horn, but something deeper, more primal. The fighting paused as everyone turned to look. From the trees emerged a group of orcs, at least 30 of them, all in battle gear. But they were not attacking the settlement. Instead, they crashed into the mercenary lines from behind, catching them completely off guard. "What?" Owen gasped, unable to process what he was seeing. "That is the Ironhide clan," Grata said, her voice filled with wonder. "And the banner there, that is Stormbreaker. They came to help us." The battle turned decisively in that moment. Caught between the defenders on the walls and the orc warriors behind them, the mercenaries broke and ran. Their commander tried to rally them, but it was no use. Within minutes, the assault was over, and the surviving mercenaries were fleeing back the way they had come. When the dust settled, Owen found himself standing in the center of the settlement, surrounded by wounded but victorious defenders. The orc warriors entered the valley cautiously, their weapons lowered but not sheathed. An orc female at the front of the group stepped forward. She was older than Grata, with scars that spoke of a lifetime of battles, but her bearing was regal. "I am Zugra of the Ironhide clan. We received your messages. Many dismissed them, but some of us were curious. A mixed community living in peace. We had to see if it was real." "It is real," Grata said, moving to stand beside Owen. "As real as the blood we just spilled defending it." Zugra looked around at the valley, at the mixed defenders helping each other with wounds, at the cabins flying both human and orc banners. "So it would seem. You have done something I did not think possible, Grata Stonefist. You have built a bridge between our peoples. We have tried. The question is whether anyone will cross it." Zugra was silent for a long moment, then she planted her weapon in the ground. "The Ironhide clan will cross it. We pledge to protect Sanctuary Valley and all who dwell within it. Let it be known that any who attack this place attack us as well." One by one, the other orc warriors followed her lead, planting their weapons in a gesture of alliance. Owen felt tears prickling his eyes. This was more than he had dared to hope for. Not just survival, but acceptance. Not just tolerance, but active support. "Thank you," he managed to say. "You have given us a chance to build something that could change the world." "Do not thank us yet," Zugra said, but there was warmth in her voice. "You have a long road ahead, but you will not walk it alone." The aftermath of the battle kept everyone busy for days. Wounds needed tending, defenses needed repairing, and the dead needed burying. They gave the mercenaries a proper burial despite everything, because, as Grata said, honoring the dead was important regardless of which side they had fought on. The orc warriors stayed for a week, helping with repairs and establishing formal relations with Sanctuary Valley. Zugra and her lieutenants worked with Owen and Grata to draft a treaty of mutual defense and trade. It was unprecedented, a formal alliance between a human-led community and orc clans, but it felt right. On the night before the Ironhide clan was set to depart, Zugra asked to speak with Grata privately. Owen watched them walk to the edge of the clearing, their heads close together in conversation. When they returned, Grata's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "What did she say?" Owen asked when they were alone later. "She said I had brought honor to the Stonefist name, even in exile, that what I did, turning against my clan to save human children, was not weakness but the greatest strength." Grata's voice shook slightly. "She said I had proven there was another way, and that future generations would remember me not as a traitor but as a pioneer." Owen pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "She is right. You changed everything, Grata. You proved that peace is possible." "We proved it together." She pulled back to look at him. "I could not have done any of this without you, Owen. Your faith in me, your willingness to risk everything, that is what made this possible." They kissed, soft and sweet, and Owen felt a sense of completion. This was what they had fought for. Not just survival, but the chance to build a world where love mattered more than species, where character counted more than the circumstances of birth. Over the next 2 years, Sanctuary Valley grew from a small settlement into a thriving community. More people came, human and orc, and even a few of other species, all seeking refuge from prejudice and violence. They built more cabins, expanded the farmland, and established a school where children of all species learned together. Owen took on the role of administrator, managing resources and mediating disputes. Grata became the head of security, training defenders and maintaining the alliance with the orc clans. Together, they guided the community through challenges and celebrated victories, always working toward the vision of a place where anyone could belong. They formalized their relationship in a ceremony that blended human and orc traditions. Oscar officiated, reading vows they had written together. Grata bared her neck in the traditional orc gesture of trust, and Owen placed a ring on her finger in the human custom of marriage. Their friends and neighbors, human and orc alike, witnessed the union and celebrated late into the night. On the morning after their wedding, Owen woke to find Grata already up, standing at the window of their cabin looking out over the valley. He joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "Everything. How far we have come." "How much has changed?" She leaned back against him. 2 years ago I was dying in your barn, alone and terrified. Now I have you, and I have this community, and I have hope for the future. It seems impossible, but it happened. We made it happen." "Yes," she turned in his arms to face him. "And we are going to keep making it happen. This is just the beginning, Owen. Sanctuary Valley is proof that peace is possible. Other communities will follow our example. Change is coming, slowly but surely." "You sound so certain." "I am certain, because I have seen what love can do. What choosing connection over conflict can accomplish." She kissed him gently. "We are going to change the world, one person at a time." Owen smiled and rested his forehead against hers. "Then let us get started. We have a community to build and a future to create." They stood there for a moment longer, warm and content in each other's arms, before heading out to face the day. Outside, Sanctuary Valley was waking up, smoke rising from chimneys and people emerging to begin their daily tasks. Children's laughter echoed across the valley, human and orc voices blending together seamlessly. This was home. This was family. This was the future they had fought for, and it was more beautiful than either of them had dared to imagine. The road ahead would still have challenges, Owen knew. Prejudice did not disappear overnight, and there would always be those who opposed what they were building. But they had proven something fundamental. That love was stronger than hatred, that peace was possible when people had the courage to choose it. And they would continue to prove it, every single day, for the rest of their lives together.